Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. Today, we will hear different perspectives in terms of Corona time from different countries around the world. So the link in between our guests today is that they are all activists and they are a bit from around the world. So let's start by presenting them. If I can ask you all to introduce yourself with your name and see where you're from and maybe giving your movement or your organization where you come from. And I would like you to add also, what do you recommend people to do if they are bored during this quarantine? Maybe we can start with you, Laura.
Okay, hi Adelaide. Thank you for having me. I'm Laura Munoz. I'm 23 years old. I'm an audiovisual communicator. I'm part of Fridays for Future Bogota here in Colombia. Bogota is the capital of Colombia. And I've been involved in the process of adjusting the climate action movement to Colombia, because it's really different. We're gonna talk about that later. And I also I really like all the digital stuff. So here, like right now in the coronavirus, I'm like putting all my effort to doing like digital campaigns. And like the main thing that I want is to like take all the realities, all the different realities that we have in Colombia to the capital, to the lucky people that lives in the city. That would be. And the thing that I will suggest to boring people, it will be like, I don't know, to watch documentaries. I am an audiovisual, so I like to spend my time watching films and TV series and a lot of stuff like that to inform myself.
Thank you, Laura. So Laura is from Colombia. And then also I forgot to say, I'm going to be moderating this webinar with Stone from also Youth for Climate here in Belgium. Maybe we can hear from you, Alison.
Hi, I'm Allison. I'm originally from Taiwan, but I live in Japan right now. So I'm a part of Fridays for Future Japan and also primarily with another group called Climate Youth Japan. I'm 15 years old and a high school sophomore right now. I would say the one thing you should do during quarantine is cook your own food because, you know, there's 3 meals a day, takes up some time, and it's really fun to try out new recipes.
Thank you. Karine?
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Karin Watson. I'm from Santiago de Chile, the capital as well. And I'm an activist with Amnesty Chile. I work with the Global Youth Collective of Amnesty International. And also I'm one of the co-founders, coordinators, something like that, of Re-Earth Initiative. It's like a very new organization that we're working on. And to like not get bored during quarantine, what I'm doing is online activism and also like trying to learn a new language. So that could work.
Nice. And our last speaker is Peter.
Hello, everyone. Thanks to Youth for Climate for inviting me. I'm super interested to hear about all of you. So I'm living in Brussels. I work at Greenpeace Belgium, where I'm one of the climate organizers or mobilizers. Also active in different more grassroots citizen groups in Belgium here. And what I do against when I'm bored, I play a lot of chess with my housemates. So I don't know if everybody knows it, but the game which is called chess, and it's interesting because it gives you some exercise for the brain. I also found out that it's good to take some rest once in a while, even though we all want to be changing the world constantly. I do think it's good to have some rest and to accept that things are a bit slower right now. Voilà.
Thank you. So now we're going to start with our first questions. If you guys have questions, please put them in the comments on Facebook and YouTube. Toon?
Yes, thank you, Adi. So the first question is for Laura. How did your activism look like before COVID-19? what characterizes your movement or the action done by your movement in your country? And maybe to clarify again, you're from Colombia.
Yeah, I'm from Colombia, but I want to make clear that here in Colombia we don't have like a Fridays for Future Colombia constituized like yet. We're doing it. Here in Bogota, we started like 1 year and like 1 or 2 months ago, and it has been like all a challenge. It will be all like a travesty, like a journey. I mean, because we started like here in the capital, and I talked this with a friend yesterday of the movement, that here in the capital we are we are closer to the people of Europe, like the vision of the movement, that to the actual environmental leaders that are on the field, like in the forest or with the indigenous people. So at the beginning we were following the European model, right? And that doesn't work because we are in Colombia, we are Latin American people, we are really different. So the first thing that was like a challenge for us was that here to study, the education is a privilege. So we cannot strike every Friday. That was like the first like thing that we realized that will characterize our movement. We cannot go outside every Friday because, as I said, the education is a privilege here, and you cannot just skip school because you're paying for it. And okay, what else? To do a protest, a mobilization is really stigmatized. So we have been like fighting against that, like to change people's mind regarding to that, because to manifestate our thoughts, our demands, like it really helps to put the topics on the table, on the agenda, on the political agenda. So we are trying to change that conception, because we have done a lot of protests here in Colombia. The other day I was looking for it, and we have had 25,000 protests like in the last 40 years. So that's a lot of protests, and that's why people now believes that protests do not do anything, that they are not useful. We're trying to change that because they do work. They do, and yeah, they have like results. And I think that's it. We have, yeah, that's it. Like something that I want to say also is that here the movement in the capital at least is something of young people, but lucky people, right? Because we have had access to education. So we have been trying to gather more people from other like perspectives or other realities. So we are not just lucky young people. That's it.
Thank you. And Karin, do you also feel the same difference in Chile? Maybe from Amnesty, can you see the different reactions in different countries?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little different because we're kind of, I don't know, used to the protests. Like Chile is a country where we've been having protests for many years, and our history, like our recent history, is like full of protesters, of social movements and that kind of things. So I agree. For us, it's also difficult in terms of like education is a privilege. The people, as Laura said, the people can actually access to this kind of information, to this kind of networks, is privileged people. So in that sense, I agree a lot. But in the part of the protest, for us, is like a super normal thing. You know, since I was like, I don't know, 13, I was used to go to protest every Thursday because the student movement. And especially with the social unrest last year, like we were like basically protesting every day for months. So now when all the situation started, of course we couldn't do that, and I feel it was a very quick reaction because the protest started like very spontaneously. Like it wasn't like someone or some organization or a leader calling people to go to the streets. It was absolutely spontaneous. So as spontaneous as they started with all the COVID situation they just finished, I feel like for all the people who was out there in the streets, it's a thing of I don't know, like social conscience that we must stop protesting because we need to protect the people, especially the elderly, from the virus, and it's on us also, like protecting the people. So it was absolutely spontaneous. They stopped. So obviously everything has changed a lot for us, and we're basically doing everything online as everyone. We're trying to use these resources, these networks, to work online, to bring information to the people in that way. But also we know that as soon as this ends, like the protests are gonna start again, and probably they're gonna take more strength because the whole situation that we're living now.
So to continue, I would like to go to you, Peter. I can say that you have been longer than us, at least been activism or involved in activism. You have been involved in grassroots movements, but you are now working for an NGO, Greenpeace, and we would like to hear from you what differences you see in between a grassroots movements on one side and on the other side an NGO concerning activism.
Interesting question. I think there is of course a lot of differences, but I would also want to stress like how we need each other. But to start with like the differences, if you look at Greenpeace, for instance, it's not, yeah, it's quite structured, it's quite institutionalized. So you have global policies, and then you have European countries working together, and then you have a national office like making central decisions. Next to that, we have a lot of volunteers and activists who can also play their part, but you still have this kind of central element where it is people that work for Greenpeace who mainly decide on the strategies that we follow. While I do think that in grassroots movements, you have a more horizontal structure where everybody can jump in and make decisions and yeah, really take up a leading role. So I think there is a difference in like how you make decisions. And if you look at Greenpeace, we're in 1 year time, we are existing 50 years, so which is a very long time. In this time, we obviously we built a lot of resources, both on the human side. So we have more than 2,000 people in more than 50 countries, 50 offices working for Greenpeace. So there's a lot of expertise. There's a lot of financial strength that we have. So there are, of course, there are a lot of differences. But if I can give an example, like how we as an NGO need citizen movements to really like achieve systematic change. For instance, in Belgium, a couple of years ago, we did a research where we investigated like pollution inside and around schools. And so we did this investigation, and of course it gave us some impact because people reacted to it, because it was about young people, their health in a school environment where we normally think they're quite safe. But then what really impacted like political decision making and political processes was when the time where like normal parents, they started blocking streets. So then by that time, we really got political impact, and we saw decision making going in a better direction. So if it's only an NGO like presenting its policies and doing lobbying and doing action, that's of course really important. But when you really want to be impactful, that's my personal view, then we really need citizens stepping up. And it was like, for a politician, when you see some Greenpeace climbers blocking a street because there is air pollution, or when you see like normal parents, everyday people blocking their streets of the school environment because they're worried about the health of their kids, I mean, the political impact is way bigger when it's citizens acting. So I think we need, as a big NGO, international NGO, we absolutely need that kind of people power where normal citizens just act. So I don't know if that's an answer to the question, but
Thank you. Yeah, that was really good. Thank you. To go back to you, Alison, we don't know a lot yet about the Fridays for Future Japan. Could you tell us a bit how it started there?
Sure. So, Fridays for Future Japan started in February of 2019. In the beginning, it was 15 people in front of a building in Tokyo, a diet building in Tokyo, and just standing there and holding signs. By March, the number grew to 300, and there was like 2 to 3 cities across the country. It really shot up in September, the Global Climate March, when 5,000 people from 24 cities across the country joined in. That was personally for me my first climate march, and since then, today we have 28 local groups across the country, and we have about a few hundreds of people organizing and thousands of people turn out. So I would say the main goal of Fridays for Future Japan so far, like most Fridays for Future and climate organizations out there, is to, number one, raise awareness about among the Japanese public about just how urgent and serious the climate crisis is, especially in regards to Japan, because Japan every year faces a lot of natural disasters like typhoons, heat waves, not droughts, lots of rain, but very few people make the connection between climate change and these natural disasters. And also, another one of the other major goal of us is to ask the Japanese government to make more ambitious climate pledges. Japan has committed to a nationally determined contribution of reducing carbon emissions by 26% by 2030. That number is highly insufficient, because according to according to a climate organization online that I don't remember her name right now, but I'll get back about that. If all countries in the world had a similar level of carbon emissions reductions, then global warming would reach between 3 degrees to 4 degrees. So these two are the major aims of Fridays for Future Japan. We work on mostly our climate marches in the streets, and also a big project of this is each local group in Japan, we're trying to get our local governments to declare a climate emergency. So along with the climate emergency, there'd be more education among the public about the climate crisis, and for them to raise their goals of carbon emission reductions. So today, I think 23 cities and 2 prefectures have declared climate emergencies, while the rest of us are still working on our prefectures. For me, living in Kobe or Hyogo Prefecture, we're still working. We submitted an unsuccessful petition back in March, and so we're hoping to try again in the coming months. But with the coronavirus situation going on, I think the priority in Japan so far has been very low in regards to the climate crisis.
Thank you. Actually, the end of what you said is also the beginning of the new question. This is a question for everyone. We are facing, as movements, as NGOs, a lot of challenges because of the corona measures. And then, of course, the question raises, or the question that we came up with is, what tactics or actions have your movement or organization developed facing the challenges of corona? And maybe Laura, could you start with that question?
Okay, so like we as a movement, like actually the coronavirus was like a push to us, because we have been trying to do workshops like in real life, like physical workshops, like for many time, and with the coronavirus we like finally had the time and the impulse to do the workshops, but obviously we did it online. So that was like a really nice thing, because one of our like flaws in our our movement is the information. We need to, like, we are young people and we're not like scientists or politicians, so we need to inform ourselves. And we finally did that series of workshops, so that was pretty nice. And like a really nice thing that like born with the coronavirus was we have something that we do every Friday. We have done that for 3 Fridays now. That is ¿Por qué preocuparse? That it will be like why to care. So every Friday we try to do a video with a person that lives the consequences of the climate crisis here in Colombia. So the first Friday we had an indigenous woman from the Arhuaco community telling us about the fires in the Sierra Nevada. The second Friday, we had a young boy from Girardot that he's a really activist and he's really, really, really smart, and he's only like 10 years old. And so he was sharing with us why he's doing activism and just a short age. And yesterday we had a countryside a guy, agriculture, telling us about what he thinks that is climate crisis and how the climate crisis has affected him and how the COVID has affected him. So that was a pretty nice thing that we like come up with the coronavirus, and we're trying, like I said at the beginning, like trying to decouple new realities, and we did that finally with the isolation, with all the time that we have inside our houses.
What about you, Karin? And did any new movements come out of this?
Yeah, I mean, in the situation in Chile with Amnesty, I wasn't like involved directly. These are ideas that came from the staff of our organization, and for example, we've been facing a lot of new challenges, of course. So we had to change the way we worked to absolutely online. So, for example, with Amnesty, what happened is that we saw that COVID obviously is affecting in new ways human rights. So we had new things to worry about, maybe. And for example, the staff started a campaign. They're taking care of the situation of COVID in jails. There is a very difficult situation here in Chile. And also they started this amazing campaign that is called El Chile que creamos, like the Chile we want to create. And it's because we were supposed to vote for if we want or no a new constitution. Last week, actually, we were supposed, but obviously with the COVID situation, the referendum was canceled. I mean, it was postponed till October. So it's basically telling people to draw or to, I mean, through arts, try to talk about the Chile you want to see with this new process. So it's a really cute campaign, and it's also to sorry, I forget the word, but to bring people to think about that also, and to create during this quarantine time. And from other side, I've been working with this group that now is called the Re-Earth Initiative, but it started as the We the Planet campaign. And it actually was born because of the situation, because the protests for Earth Day obviously were canceled. So some people from United States, from Costa Rica, from India joined in a group and started this campaign to bring people to mobilize for Earth Day. So we were working a lot on that during a month, asking people to make pledges about a commitment that they want to do, a commitment for an individual action, but also for a systemic collective action. That happened on April 22 for Earth Day, and it was it has a lot of impact. We reached a lot of people, and we had a lot of people making this pledge. So we decided to continue as an organization so we can help people to actually bring these pledges to action. So that's what we are working on now. We're developing toolkits. We want to do webinars from the different topics that they pledge about.
Thank you. Then we go over, because we're going the same order, to Peter again. Could you maybe tell us a little bit more about what you guys have been doing with Greenpeace, and maybe what tactics and actions you used?
Yeah, so to begin with, it was like for everybody, it was super challenging because we made our plans, right? COP26 was happening, and everybody knew that this was a very important political moment. So we had like plans going to put more pressure on that, and suddenly we had to completely change everything, which is challenging in itself. And then me personally, I'm a very offline kind of person. I like to do actions and mobilizations, and now suddenly that wasn't possible anymore. So on different levels, organizational why, like on an organizational level, but also on a personal level, I think it was very challenging to begin with. I now feel that we're out of this paralyzed moment where in the first week everybody was looking like, okay, but what do we do now then? And now I start to feel that we're coming up with new cool things, both online, but also maybe offline. So in Belgium, Greenpeace Belgium, we launched a couple of things. Like we launched a email action where we invite people to send emails to our minister, because there is a negotiation happening right now where airline companies are asking for taxpayers' bailouts, so taxpayers' money. So this is, I think, something interesting where you can put pressure, political pressure, via online tools. We had our first offline activity, and that was super exciting. I think here in Brussels, we did a hologram projection. It's maybe a bit technical, but it's basically you project people marching on the streets on a screen, and we did that in front of the European Council, so the European institutions. But with everything that you do offline, you have to be super careful, right? Because we're dealing with this health crisis, so you don't want to put people inside dangerous situations. So you really have to plan really carefully that you don't cause harm. But I'm seeing a lot of cool examples from different countries, different places in the world, where they're starting to do offline actions again. So I'm wondering what the next new thing will be, and if people have maybe examples or ideas, I would really like to hear them. Voilà.
Nice, thank you. And maybe from Alison from Japan.
So, like the other people, like the rest of you were talking about, we were originally trying to mobilize for like a big global climate march on April 24th. But since that became impossible, in addition to each week, we would join in with SFF Digital. So like you make a sign, you hold a sign, and you take a photo of yourself and you post it on social media. On April 24th, we decided to do a digital day of action. So we posted on every post we made, the hashtag called Kiko Mokiki, which translates to the climate is also a crisis, and also hashtag 26 to raise awareness on Japan's nationally determined contribution, which is from the Climate Action Tracker. That's the website I was looking at. And so on the April 24th, throughout the whole day, we try to get these hashtags out on Twitter, on Instagram as much as possible, and hoping to increase dialogue in these social media platforms. So that was the main action we were planning for, mobilizing for the past month. So unfortunately, we understand that, like, we know that right now the health crisis should take priority, but also looking forward, we're starting to become a little worried about what's going ahead, because Japan, at the same time that it was announcing these states of emergencies, announced that it would keep the same commitment to carbon emission reduction. So looking forward, we're hoping that, and also offline actions will probably not be happening for a long while, because we just received news a few days ago that the Japanese Prime Minister was going to extend a state of emergency for another month. So for now, we're thinking about, in the long term, when we begin to recover from this situation, how can we keep climate as part of the discussion and just not forget about it?
Thanks. But now that the whole situation has kind of changed, we're facing really different challenges in all the movements, I think, around the world, especially that we can usually we take the streets or we have actions outside. So now, what are for your movement or your organizations the biggest challenge that you are facing during this Corona period? Laura.
Of like difficulties, I think that the difficulties, it will be like external, like the disemployment, the inequality. The We have a really weak healthcare system, so maybe a big challenge is to show people that online, like to bring all those problems that have come up or like explode with the COVID, like show them online. That will be like the main challenge that we have.
Okay, thank you for that. Karin, could you tell us something more about the challenges that you guys are facing?
Yeah, of course. I feel it's a very difficult moment because, of course, as we say, as Alison said, sorry, it's difficult to talk about like the climate crisis or any other crisis when we are facing such a like, you know, big crisis on health. And as Laura says, kind of the same here in Chile. This COVID crisis is basically showcasing everything that was wrong before, you know. This crisis has showcased every little problem that we were fighting about during the social unrest. The health system, we almost don't have any kind of social protection. The education system is not working well. So all these kind of things that we were protesting about, you can see it like very you know, clearly with this new crisis. So I feel it's very difficult when we are trying to, I don't know, protest about climate, try to bring awareness about this issue, but then you have all these people that, I don't know, they're losing their jobs, you know. So I feel that we, at least here in Chile, we're facing kind of three crises, like the social crisis, the climate crisis, and the COVID crisis. And obviously they're related, but it's very difficult to work from that, like to try to face the different things and like try to bring awareness about one thing when people, you know, it's caring about other things. It's difficult.
Yeah, I imagine it must be even harder in Chile. What about you, Peter, here in Belgium?
Yeah, and you can add, because you're also in Belgium, if you have something, but I think it's a bit the same. We're facing this enormous crisis. Lots of people are dying around the world. Lots of people are being put in hospitals, if they even have like healthcare systems. We will see millions more losing their jobs. So it's a very difficult moment to campaign for climate justice right now, because people are facing like problems on a daily basis in their families, in their friends. So it's difficult to campaign for something which is maybe in the eyes of the public something on a later basis, like it's something for the future. And it's also, for me, it's challenging because I sometimes hear that this is the biggest opportunity, because yeah, lots of radical ideas suddenly become possible. But I don't think it's a bit dangerous to look at it this way, because actually a lot of people are suffering at the moment. So for me, it's a challenge I saw Laura doing like this, like it's trying to connect different struggles, connect different people and movements together around this new situation, and to come up with answers for the future. So for me, that's a big challenge to find those connections in between people.
Thank you. Yeah, and then you're the last on this question, Alison. Could you tell us a little bit more about the challenges in Japan?
Sure. In Japan right now, we're still in a very, well, some countries are recovering from COVID-19 and already trying to return into normal routines. It's the hospital systems are almost collapsing in Japan, even though very few people are being tested. So it's that, like you all have said, it's still a very very difficult time right now. And in looking at it from a more long-term perspective, we're very, like me personally, I'm very worried about what this means for the dialogue on climate action. In the past, like when we asked, like when we're going to our local prefectural governments to ask them to raise their carbon emission reduction pledges, they told us, oh, we're not sure we have the budget for this, might not be realistic to invest this much in renewable energy. And right now, Japan recently announced that it would invest 20% of its annual GDP into stimulus packages, economic stimulus packages for COVID-19. So going forward, we think that the government will be even less inclined towards investing more and more into renewable energies and the need to transform into a sustainable economy. So that's probably the biggest concern right now in terms of the long-term view, what we think, how the climate dialogue will happen in the future.
Thank you. Laura, did you still want to add something?
Yeah, like really, really quickly, because I forgot something, but it was basically about linking problems. Like here in Colombia, at least, the crisis climate problems are also social problems. So, for example, deforestation is not only a cause for like climate change, but it's also because some people that live near to those forests, they do not have something to eat. So basically their only solution is to start to cutting trees to get some money to eat. So it's really difficult, and it has always been linked, like the climate crisis, with social problems here in Colombia. That would be.
Yeah, thank you for that. Or Ali, was it your turn?
No, it's you.
No,
Just to add about how Youth for Climate in Belgium is also for sure struggling to also make sure that we want to put forward the corona crisis, which we need to take seriously, but without forgetting the climate crisis, and making sure that the workers will still have a job, and making sure we don't put anyone in trouble, but without forgetting the climate. It's always hard to put something forward without, while mentioning that we are not forgetting about the other things. So for sure that is the difficulty, I think, for lots of movements.
Yeah, and that's something that we may not forget, that because of the measures that are taken, and of course they are very important, a lot of people are facing other problems, and we must know that at the moment there is a potential of 265 million people that could die from hunger. A new report shown last weekend. So we have to be aware of all these struggles as movement, try to adapt and indeed connect. That's very important. So thank you all for this very good input. Then to go over to the next topic and the next question. Peter, you have been active, as I have said before, longer than us in activism, so I'm going to repeat it this time. And then almost or more than a year ago, the youth protests arrived. Could you maybe tell us a little bit in how you saw activism changing, or did it change with the youth protests?
Yeah, I'm starting to feel old. No, it's a joke. No, yeah, did it change? I think the answer is for sure yes. And I think I can speak for everybody that is working or linked with Greenpeace, that we really look at young people like you, as heroes. Like we really are super happy with this whole movement, and we really think it has the potential to radically change society and political decision making. So yeah, if you ask me if it had impact, I would for sure say yes. Maybe some examples, like here in Belgium, we organized a very big climate march. The figures aren't completely clear, but we think around 100,000 people joined this march. This was the end of 2018, actually right before Youth for Climate Belgium was founded, I think. And we saw that back then it was still possible to kind of ignore us as a civil movement, civil society. And then it was really when, like, on a weekly basis, young kids, they stopped going to school, that the issue of climate justice was really at the top of the political agenda. And like every political actor had to come up with some sort of a climate plan. And yeah, for sure, some of the plans were really shit, let's say it this way. But from going to no plan at all to like having to present a plan on how you tackle climate change is a very big step forward, I would say. And it's not possible to ignore it anymore. I mean, before it was like something, it was a discussion happening in some like science corners and activist corners. And we saw with like Greta, and here in Belgium, Adelaide, Anuna, and everywhere, young people standing up. It was something that was, the discussion wasn't happening anymore alone on like these little spaces, but it was in mainstream media, it was in political debates, in the elections in Belgium here, it was one of the main topics, which was not imaginable, I would say, if it weren't for young kids, really fighting for their future. So I think you're really impactful. So don't stop now. We're in a marathon. We have a long way to go, and political processes are slow and they're not good enough. But I do feel with this kind of movement, if you look at it also like on the COVID, like a Corona lens, I think we're a lot more resilient as a society, because globally and in national contexts, young people are connected, they're organized. So I do think that our response as civil society will be a lot stronger than if it weren't for those kind of connections. So I do think that we will have more political impact on the decisions that are being made right now in relation to Corona.
Thank you. Karin, now a question for you, because COP25 got cancelled in Chile last year. I for sure know it. So it got cancelled because of massive social protests. And we were wondering two questions. First, how did Amnesty react to those protests in Chile? And then afterwards, how is the situation today?
Yeah, so you for sure know that it was cancelled. Yeah, I know as well. Well, yeah, it was a pretty complicated time, of course, because like for Amnesty, it was probably it was the biggest human rights crisis we had in the last 4 years, like from the dictatorship. So of course it was a very challenging time. The response actually was very quick from Amnesty. I wasn't here because I was in another action outside Chile, but there was a team. Amnesty would basically work from investigation, from research, and then we can from the research we decide what we do. So the first step always is the research. So the Americas team, the regional team, sent a special research team to Chile, and we basically work on documenting and bringing all the information together about what was happening, like how people were tortured, were killed, were detained very unfairly during the protest in October. So we launched a report about that, and from that we started to work obviously on political lobby and trying to protect the people, working with different organizations on protection for the people who was detained, for example, and also joining the protest when it was possible, because I think that we've never been so scared to go to a protest, because as I say before, I'm super used to go to protests, but for the first time in my life I could die because of going to a protest. I could get shot and die. So that's obviously a new thing for us, and it was very challenging because obviously you want to fight for that, but at the same time you feel very scared to join the protest because of that. So in that sense it's obviously very difficult. Right now, the situation obviously is better, but it's because of COVID, because we don't have many protests because of that. But for example, yesterday was May Day, and a lot of people went out to the street, to the main place where we joined. It was called Plaza Italia. Now we call Plaza de la Dignidad. There is Dignity Square because of the whole movement starting there. And a lot of people went there to protest with all the like how do you say, like the protection for COVID, obviously, and they started actually to protest like very far away one from other. But anyways, the police came and a lot of people were detained. We don't have too much information now about what happened, but we know that a lot of people were detained yesterday. So we know that the situation is, as long as there are protests, it's gonna be difficult. It's gonna be complicated. But at least with all the lobby, with all the politicians involved, we got to, I mean, we kind of made that police retrocede a little with the violence. Like then they're more conscious about that now, because like the first day they would go out and just literally like shoot at you, like killing people. Now they're obviously, after everything was known by their like public opinion, they started to retrocede on the violence, so that's good. But we don't know what is going to happen, because you know our government is basically letting this things happen. So it's a very crazy situation right now.
Yeah, that's a bit confronting to hear, of course, because in Belgium we don't face such challenges. So thank you to make us aware of that. We have been hearing a lot of the protests in Chile, and there were some things of in the media. And before this webinar, we were a bit preparing with everyone here, and we were also talking about the protests in Colombia. And maybe Laura, could you tell us something more about if you maybe had similar protests in your country, or if there are some similarities?
Yeah, I don't know if you know, if like I haven't talked with people from Argentina or Chile, but you were like an example to us in those months. And like, as I was saying, like in that period of time, that last year was like the people calls like an awakening. I don't like that much that word, but it was like a lot of protests happening in Latin America. When the protests in Chile happened on October, we wanted something similar in Colombia. So it wasn't that naturally that here it was planned, like as indicates, planned the protest on the 21st of November. But it wasn't that strong. Like before that day, we were like asking ourselves, like, what is going to happen? Is going to be that strong? Like we're gonna shift that? Like I don't know. Like we were like keeping asking a lot of questions, but it wasn't that strong. We did achieve some things. We were like in protest, like in constant protest, like for a month or so. Like when in January the things were supposed to continue, but they were like left in the air. So the only thing that I will say that we achieved, like as an environmental movement, was the sign to the Escazú Agreement, and we like the government did like a species of like tables of like groups, like spaces to talk to people, to the population. But it was not a conversation. It was like something like they were socializing their projects, and we like gave our opinions, but they weren't listening. So it was really difficult, and that was it. Like we don't know what is going to happen after the protest, but me personally, like I don't think that we are going to be that like strong in terms of protest as Chile.
Alison, you told us that in Fridays for Future Japan, there is a different way of acting, of doing actions. you said you were going more into education. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Sure. So I talked briefly about the number of strikers at the beginning. So we've only reached the maximum around 5,000-ish per March. So that's obviously much lower than other countries that are reaching like tens or even hundreds of thousands of marchers. I think to a big degree that's because of the culture or the mindset in Japan. Unlike countries like Karen talked about, Chile, where there's lots of people are very used to going into the streets and striking and protesting. In Japan, that almost never happens, and even overall the concern for social issues is very low. For example, voter turnout every election is more like 20 to 30% ish only. So while climate strikes haven't reached the level that other countries may be, and as Peter said, as such, the youth climate movement in Japan isn't yet enough to influence the political dialogue sufficiently. I think that we have still been improved. The numbers have still been increasing consistently. So we're hoping that in the next few months, we can still just keep on pushing. And also along with our climate emergency declarations that can maybe push for a dialogue within our prefectures and cities to hope for more people to take on, to realize, oh, it's a state of emergency and we need to do more about it. I'd also like to talk, I think this is probably common among many countries as well, but personally growing up in Taiwan for most of my life and in Japan, all the education I've received on mostly about climate environment preservation is more focused on individual actions like turn off the lights, use a reusable bag instead of a plastic bag. When in fact, if the big polluters and the governments change these policies, like even if all of us focus on these individual actions, it's far from enough. And that's why that's one of the reasons I also joined in to make a We the Earth / We Earth initiative pledge on Earth Day, because I think it's really important that at the same time that we're talking about all these individual actions, we still must be pleading for systematic action. These two together is the only way that we can actually make the change needed in the time we have.
Audrey, I see that you're looking to me, so I guess the next question is for me. I thought it was your question, but okay, I'll do it. So what should post-corona look like, do you think? And what would be the role of your movement or organization in post-corona? So I'll try to formulate it again. How do you dream that post-corona will look like? And Laura, you can start. Then we are keeping the order of the beginning.
Okay. I think that maybe this is a bit like generalized, but we're trying to be with the campaign of like, I don't remember the hashtag of the campaign now, but in Spanish will be like, we are preparing like something like recuperémonos mejor, that is like we don't want to go back to normal. It's something like that. We need to do a systematic change of our beliefs, our economy, our, like, we cannot keep doing the things like we were doing it, because that was the thing that conducted us to this crisis. So we just want to push to be really insistent in that the government cannot keep with the oil projects, and actually a few days ago the government started to be more flexible in some processes, bureaucratic processes, to start projects go against the nature. So we need to be really pushy and really attentive to those kind of projects, and to keep our voice louder, to make the government realize that this is not the way. We need to be pushy and to be really insistent. And I have I don't know if I'm really positive, but I want to believe that we can do it. But I know that it's difficult. Like here in Colombia, it's really difficult. That would be.
Yeah, we all really hope so. What about you, Karen?
I like what Laura said about that we don't want to go back to normal because normal was a problem. And I think that's a lesson that we learn now. And also we learn that if we treat the crisis as a crisis, we as a society, we can react to it. We can take action on it. So I think it's a lesson that we learn, and we have to like treat the climate crisis as a crisis so we can actually tackle it. So I really hope that we, like through the protest, through like all the work we've been doing, achieve that, um, because we obviously need a systemic change. And also for the specific case of Chile, we, as I said before, we saw how this crisis is showcasing all the problems we have. So it's, I won't say positive because this crisis obviously is not positive, but as well we learned that, you know, we could see how we are not prepared to a crisis like that because of the, like, you know, all the problems, the systemic problems that we already have. So it's very important to keep on fighting. We, like, the government tried to kind of stop a little this social process using COVID as an excuse. They are some politicians are proposing to cancel the referendum, like not to only postpone but cancel. So we know that we have to keep on fighting for that, for the referendum to happen, for the apruebo, like the yes to the new constitution to win, so we can actually start to write a new constitution, and from that create a new Chile that can actually protect people, can protect human rights, and can protect the environment. So it's a long fight.
Yeah, it's a long fight, but we have to fight this fight together, and that's still something that we should keep address. Peter, the question, same question for you.
Yeah, it's more or less the same. It's more or less the same, with maybe some differences culturally speaking, because we're here in Europe and that's a different political context. I think what I said before, like, it's a bit dangerous to see this as the biggest opportunity ever for climate, because in a way, this crisis also offers some opportunities where radical ideas that were before not yeah, they were too radical. Now it's possible that they become mainstream. Just one example here in Belgium, cities are transforming into bikers' paradises. So for instance, in Brussels, with one decision from a politician, it was 40 kilometers of extra biking lanes. So these kind of changes, like really systemical shifts, it's possible that they are possible now. And for Greenpeace, it's quite clear that we have this hashtag. It's hashtag Just Recovery. So this is really the guideline. Like we want a recovery which is in line with people and planet, and also a very important point about biodiversity, because if we see it, yeah, the links in between biodiversity, COVID, climate change, they're super clear. So I think, yeah, I think that's what we're pushing for on a global scale, and really also by supporting Fridays for Future, hopefully we'll be able to get to a better society than it was once COVID started.
What about you, Alison?
Yeah, the just recovery part is really universal, especially Japan. It's considering a second round of aid right now. So when they're investing billions of dollars again into the economy, like where does it go? That's a very big part. So when we're recovering, we're inclined to focus on climate to make sure it's a factor in all these decisions, and a very major factor. On a bigger scale, I think it's also really important to learn that it's always, you must act early before it's too late. Take a look at countries who managed to limit cases to only a few hundred, like Taiwan. They acted early, they listened to the scientists, they did what had to be done instead of doubting what the scientists were talking about, and they were able to stay ahead of the curve. while the other countries who took a long time and took not decisive action are now, like Japan, trying to struggle really hard. So it's important to remember, like COVID, climate crisis, it's better to act early before it's too late.
We have now several questions from people who have been watching us. One question is, this crisis shows the urgent to fight even more for a better world, like we were saying, but how do you find a balance between activism and your personal well-being, especially in this period where we are physically disconnected from our friends and family? I guess we can go around for that. Laura.
God, I don't like to be the first. Always. I don't know. This has been really, really, really difficult. Like before I got to my home, Adelaide knows I was like in a project, in a sailing project. So I was like struggling inside that project because I was receiving so many realities, so many problems, so many things inside. Like in me, I was keeping a lot of things inside me. And that project was canceled suddenly because of the COVID, so I needed to go back to my house. And when I got back, like I wasn't like I didn't have the time to process all the things that I was living on the ship, like all those realities regarding the climate activism. And now I had to it was like a shock to be with a lot of people, all nice people, and then I was alone in my house. And like I was in a world of fantasy in that ship, and when I got to my house, it was like a big numbers of COVID, of sick people. So it was like of suddenly it was really hard for me. And I have something that maybe some people like feel the same, is that I keep a lot of things inside me, and I don't know how to let them go. So it all has been a process. Like I need to take my time to like literally just to lock inside my room and just put some music and feel that's it's basically like just to feel. That will be like my advice, just feel. And because sometimes I try to distract myself with movies or reading or like talking with friends, but I need to save some time to myself and just feel. And that has worked for me. I don't know, because I'm in the way to discovering that way of working myself.
Thank you. Maybe we'll do this time another order to change it a little bit. Sorry, Karin. Alison, you can go.
Yay! I'd say like it's really easy. Like for me, like I just checked my screen time the other day. It turns out I'm spending like 12, 13, 14 hours a day on my screen, so that's not good. So it's like the only physical interaction I have right now is with my family. So it's nice to just take breaks and like talk to people in my family, talk to my family. And I would say the thing I really like about climate activism is in our FFF international groups. Like whenever somebody says, "Oh, I'm going to be taking a mental health break for the next week or the next few days," everyone's really supportive and accepting. So I think it's really important to when you know you need a break for your own well-being, then you just go and take it, and everyone around is really accepting of that. And also, a thing I really like in our Fridays for Future Japan meetings is that at the beginning and end of every meeting, we, even if it takes 5 to 10 minutes, we take the time to check in. So every person says what's going on new in their lives. So this kind of keeps makes us feel like we're still having our connections to each other instead of just trying to solve the problem and just keep on going and going and going until we can't go anymore. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So Peter, you can go next.
Okay. Yeah, like I said before, for me it's important to take rest, as Laura also mentioned, like to feel and to listen. Because in the first weeks of this confinement, I was like, oh, we have to make change happen right now, and we can't lose any seconds. And I was constantly, like every one of you, looking at a screen and working long days in the weekend as well. And then, yeah, that doesn't really help my productivity, let's say. For me, it's better to do maybe less hours, but to be more productive when I do something. So that was a good lesson for me, which I maybe want to take further after this confinement as well. And it's about connecting to yourself and maybe trying to do new stuff. I have the ambition to start working with wood, like ecological wood, which is locally produced here, to make some new benches or table for our house. So it's something, yeah, trying to also discover some new things in your life. That's also something which I'm trying to do. It's an ambition, so not sure yet if I'll make it.
Karin?
Yeah, I think the new hobby is important, and thank you for this question, because I think it's a very important like topic to talk about. I suffer from a horrible anxiety disorder since a lot of years ago, so I've been advocating to talk about mental health, about well-being for the activists, like in my role as an activist in Amnesty and all. So I like to talk about this. Because it's important to talk about if we want to raise awareness and if we want to kind of mainstream to talk about these kind of things. And of course it was difficult at the beginning. Like I've been like 46 days inside my house without leaving, because I also have like problems, respiratory problems. So it's very scary for me to get this, because it could actually like be like difficult to have this virus myself. So obviously it made me very anxious at the beginning, and like I knew that I had to be home, but at the same time I was feeling anxious because, you know, I'm very privileged to be at my home, but I know that in my country a lot of people is outside and they can like be quarantined because the government is not taking the measures that it should be taking to protect the people. So that all also was like affecting me a lot. And I think like the way that I could balance that was starting to like try to have a very, I don't know, close schedule for my days. Like this day I have this to-do list to do, and I will do, I don't know, half an hour of exercise and half an hour I'm gonna study, and then 3 hours I'm gonna work on the graphics and things like that. So I think that's the best way for me, but also like taking mental health days. As Alison say, I also spend a lot of time on social media, and that's not a great thing because you are exposed to a lot of information. So I also like just disappear for a couple of days, and I try to disconnect myself from that, and I just watch movies. Like I'm with my family, with my dog, with my cats, try to stop a little this consumption of information. Also helps.
Thank you. So first, to other points. One, if people in the public have extra questions, you can put them in the comment sector. For that, we have a very good technical team that I want to thank that are following up on the questions, so that makes that we can answer them. So going to the next question, or first, Adi and I wanted to propose that because of lack of time maybe, or not make it too long and having extra questions, it would be good if only 2 people answer each question. So I would just like to do it in popcorn style. If you want to answer, just raise your hand and then we can point out someone. To go to the next question. What about system change as an umbrella for all the struggles that are going on, including climate change? So is someone willing to answer this question?
I didn't understand well. Can you explain to me?
Yeah, I'll repeat the question. So what about system change as an umbrella for all the struggles that are going on, including climate change? Karin?
I can go. I think it's also like a very important thing to say, because as you probably realize, I've been working in different things. I don't only work in the climate movement. I work for human rights. I'm from human rights. I also work in sexual and reproductive health and rights for women. So I have like kind of 3 different lines of action. So of course it's a thing that I've seen, that we need this systemic change in order to change all the other things. As I said, for example, in the campaign I work for Earth Day, and Alison commented about that as well. Like, we can just focus on the individual action, because obviously it's not, if we don't get the systemic change, or individual actions won't work itself. So we need to, I mean, it's absolutely important that we take individual action, but also we need to like strive in that direction, like to strive to work with politicians, to talk about, to like try to reach the high level instances in order to like find this change for everything, not only climate change, but also human rights, but also women's rights, and keep on working on that.
Any other reactions to this question? If none, we can also just go to the next one. This didn't give much time also to people to ask questions, but that's all right. Maybe we can go to one question that we thought we received from the audience that we thought would be nice to finish our webinar. The question is, it's impressive and inspiring to see young responsible citizens as all of you are, and from different parts of the world. Congratulations. What is your feeling to see each other involved in the climate issue? So we thought that was a nice question, and maybe if you can also wrap it up with what you want today people to end their day with, an idea that you would have sorry, not very well pronounced, but what would people, when they finish this webinar, want to remember from it? Let's start with Peter.
I wasn't fully prepared to start. So I hope they remember all of it. No, because I do think that there were some really interesting insights coming from across the world, especially on, for me, like intersectionality and also solidarity in these moments of really hard times for a lot of people around the world. So that's what I'm taking from it, and I'm interested in hearing from the rest of the group what they think of it, and maybe I can answer the first question on a later moment when I get some more time to think about it.
Of course.
Okay, to go on, Laura, could you answer the question?
That's unfair because he asked for a later turn, but okay. Like, I have always been kind of aware that I'm pretty lucky, because my family is from the countryside, so I have like had the best of both worlds, like the connection with the nature, the love with the animals, but also the privilege of the city, like a good education. I had the opportunity to go to the university, but like the last months, I have realized that I have been kind of blind to other perspectives, like indigenous people, Afro-descendientes, Afro people, yeah. So the one thing that I will say is just to like open our eyes, our hearts to new realities, to inform ourselves, because we live in a bubble, not only because we are locked in our houses, but also because social media just shows what we want to be shown, right? Like, we need to look outside that bubble, like that networking of that the social media shows us. So that will be basically just open our eyes, open our hearts, like to look for more information outside our own reality, to be curious, and just be really like, I don't know how to say, like empático. How do you say empático? Empathic? like empathic to other realities, because I think that will be like the first step to change your consumption, to change your lifestyle, to start activism, to start to care other people. That would be.
Thank you. Karin, you are the one who speaks Spanish here also, so you can help. But
I don't know either. It's like to think and to like care about others. So empático.
maybe you can go on then.
Yeah. So actually, it's really amazing because I didn't know any of you people, and it's like just Adi, but the rest of you, and it's really cool to talk with you because also from what you've been saying, I know that we probably have a lot of friends in common, and we've been working in different projects that are kind of connected. So it's cool to know that and to meet all of you, and I really loved all your input, so thanks for that. And also my, I don't know, message is kind of similar what Laura and Peter said, because I think it's really important to recognize ourselves as privileged people. Probably all of us that are here, that we have a computer and we are from the city and we have a stable internet connection to do that, you know, we have privilege, and it's really important to recognize that and to use them to work for change. And also like what Laura said about, I mean, Peter said about the intersectionality of the issues, and that's also very important for me. And what Laura said, to actually recognize the bubble we live in and try to find the other perspectives, and try to kind of, for me, it's kind of a stop to take all the places, would try to find new people to, and to give these spaces for more people, so we can actually have more perspectives for people that have been working in these issues for many years, but they haven't been heard. So I think it's important to try to give these spaces to all these people. Yeah, that.
So nice to hear. Alison.
Yeah, hearing all of your perspectives and stories, it actually like just reminds me again of how we're all really fighting for the same thing, and that yes, some people will be affected more deeply than other people, but really no matter your age, gender, occupation, anything, like the climate is something that's going to affect you probably very deeply. So you probably can and you should be trying to work fight for the climate. So yeah, and also a big, yeah, I agree with everything said about privilege and recognizing that.
Peter, do you want to add something? Maybe, oh, you do?
I want to agree with all of the above. I think you all said very well and complete. So thank you for that.
Maybe I'll ask Toon also to answer that question as a member of Youth for Climate Belgium.
Could you ask me the question again? Sorry, I forgot. I have to be honest about that.
First, how do you feel about seeing all those activists from around the world? And the second question is, what do you want people to remember today?
I think I can answer the first question with one word, and that's inspiring. It's very cool to see that so many people are active around the world, and we can all connect. We face different issues, but we can learn from each other, and it's very beautiful to see so much engagement. And I'm very happy to see that again in this webinar. So thank you all for that. Then the second question: what do I want people to remember? I think the most important thing for me is that a lot of people are facing a lot of struggles today because of the corona measures, and we shouldn't forget that, and we should try to connect with as much movement and people as possible, and really try to work together towards a better future. I think that we have to do that, that there is no other option, and that it actually would be irresponsible if we don't take care of the people that need it the most. So yeah, that's something that I want people to remember.
Amazing. I'm also really, really happy to see you all here. Thank you so much. It's really inspiring to hear the different perspective from everywhere. And I remember when I heard first about how Fridays for Future was working in Colombia. It is so, so different. But as long as we try to make people conscious of climate change and keep our fight and stay united is the most important. So thank you so much for coming here today. If you want to add something, please do. Otherwise, we can end on this term. Cool.
Just thank you, Adelaide, because you have like really like a connected person, like links people, and thank you, Ton, and everyone. I don't know what.
Yeah,
We'll
thank
end with the
you.
classic. We'll end with the classic Belgium hashtag United for Climate.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. Good night, Alison, because it's very late in Japan, and have a good day, guys, in South America. And for the Belgian people, have a good end of afternoon. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.